Welcome to the Jake's School Podcast. On today's episode, my guest is Scott Smalstig. Scott is the VP of Fund Development at Meridian Services. Scott, welcome. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. You are a busy man. I see you everywhere. I see you. You're promoting the Rialzo. I see you out promoting Christmas lights at Gresham. I see you on road trips across the U.S. on Route 66. You're always on the go somewhere.
A busy life, but that's the way I like it. I think that somebody once told me that if you want something done, give it to the busiest guy in town,
Right.
and they get it done. So, no, thankfully, I've got a family that appreciates all of it too, but I enjoy being active.
Definitely. We go way back. You were my Little League coach back in the mid-'90s.
Thanks for reminding me of that. It was a while ago. But yeah, when I first got to town, my boss asked if because he knew I played baseball in high school and college, and asked if I could help with his Little League team, and so I had no kids at the time, was not married, but it was a great outlet for me and kind of a neat way to get involved in the community. And Royerton Little League was a really solid Little League, and both Brad and I were super competitive, and so there's no off days even with Little League stuff. So we take it seriously, and we were out there to win, and we had a lot of fun. And you were one of the better players that I had.
Yeah, it was awesome having a coach that was young, had the knowledge and the energy. Sometimes it seems like in Little League, you get someone that is there because they kind of have to be because no one else will do it. But you guys are there because you wanted to be there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in my opinion, anything worth doing is worth doing well, and baseball is one of those things. And I was fortunate enough to have some really great coaches growing up, and they took it seriously. And if I wouldn't have received that good instruction at a very young age, I just think it's really difficult to become, the player that you can be. I just see so many Little League coaches given poor instruction, and some of those kids are just never going to recover, right, if
Right.
you're not taught the right way to do it. So, love baseball.
And it's funny because we reconnected randomly. You went to high school with one of the Murrays that owns Mercix, where I work, and you were just doing a random tour with one of the owners that you knew from high school. We got talking, reconnected, went out, had a couple beers, and I said, "Hey, I'm wanting to start this podcast." And you thought it was an excellent idea, really supportive, and I appreciated that. And I was like, "Scott, I want to have you on." I mean, one of my first guests. So
I love it.
where'd you go to high school at? You went to school with the Murrays, but
Carmel High School. So grew up in Carmel. My parents, lived there, north side of Indianapolis, and kept moving further north into Carmel. And so I was a K through 12 at Carmel and enjoyed it. And as I mentioned, big influences in my life were teachers and coaches that just demanded excellence. So Carmel was a fantastic place to grow up. But that's where I met Susan, and I think she was a softball player, as a matter of fact. But,
yeah, I know she was a good athlete from what I hear.
Yeah, she was.
What all did you do in high school besides baseball?
So I was involved in everything, but my main passions were writing. I was a writer for the school newspaper, and then became editor of the school newspaper both my junior and senior years. And then I also wrote for the Carmel Topics newspaper, which was a weekly newspaper, so I wrote sports articles for them. The great part about that is that I was paid by the column inch. So the more I wrote, the more money I got paid. So I wrote the world's longest sports stories.
You got wordy with it.
Yeah, it was great. So involved in journalism, and I loved that in high school, but also football, basketball, and baseball. Played that up through my sophomore year, and then concentrated on baseball my junior and senior years. But then I was also involved in student government. Loved lots of aspects of leadership, and so got involved in what was at the high school level. Carmel had a bicameral student government, so they had a Senate, which they elected 5 or 6 kids from every class, part of the Senate, and then the House of Representatives had one student from every homeroom. That was the House of Reps. And then so you had a Speaker of the House, then you had a student body president. So I was a sophomore class president and junior class president, then ran for student body president, and so was student body president my senior year. So loved the student government aspect of it too.
So what came after high school?
After high school, I went to Wabash College, so I was fortunate enough to get a Lilly scholarship, which was nice, which helped my parents out quite a bit. We got the whole thing paid for, which was cool.
Yeah, Wabash isn't cheap.
Wabash is not cheap, but a great place. But it was interesting because, I mean, it was only 800 students. So my high school graduating class at Carmel was as big as Wabash. So, but I loved it. Wabash was an outstanding environment, all male school, 11-to-1, student to faculty ratio. I had several classes throughout my time at Wabash that were 4, 5, 6 people. And if you didn't show up at class, your professor was calling you at the fraternity house and asking you to get into class. It was a great environment for me because it was a ton of accountability, but it also opened my eyes to lots of things that I did not know. I mean, I often refer to my college days as unlearning. I really felt like Wabash reminded me how much I didn't know, because I think a lot of people come out of high school thinking they got it all figured out, right?
I feel the older I get, the less I know.
Yeah,
I truly feel that way, or at least I think what I know.
Oh, I had a couple classes that were, I was an English major, thought that was going to be an easy thing to do. There were a few classes that I went to that I had to write words down that I heard in class and then come back home and look them up in the dictionary. It was very academically rigorous, challenging, but I loved it. So played a couple years of baseball there, but also realized that I wasn't going to, get drafted, playing baseball at the Division III level, and it just took a ton of time. So I turned in my spikes for being the editor of the college newspaper. So I was editor of the college newspaper at Wabash too.
Now, since you studied English in college, and then since I've known you, you've always been involved in business, how did the two relate?
Well, I was fortunate enough to have a couple internships in college that kind of connected the dots. Again, I loved writing. I loved being creative. I had a job after my sophomore year at Wabash, and in the summer I was basically the intern for the public relations department at the old Hooks Drugs, back before it was bought and sold several times. It's now CVS, but they were headquartered here in Indianapolis. And one summer I got to job shadow the VP of PR, and just fell in love with it. Everything from writing press releases to handling customer complaints to openings for new stores all across the Midwest. So we'd hop in a helicopter and go to someplace in the middle of nowhere in Illinois and open up a new Hooks drugstore. So all that stuff was really eye-opening to me. Let me know that communication skills were so needed in the business world. And I figured out that I was writing 30-page papers in college so that I could write 30-second commercials, or a 200-word press release, in the job world. So that Hooks Drugs internship was great. From there, I had an internship with the Pan American Games when they were in Indianapolis, and got to do a lot of event promotion, for the Pan Am Games in 1987 when they were in Indy. So I was just bitten by the bug early of the kind of the marketing and PR side of things, and so I really kind of slanted that way from that point.
Now, I mentioned in the intro you work at Meridian Services now. How did your career progress to get where you are now?
Yeah, so initially I got a job at Eli Lilly. I just grabbed the biggest brass ring I could out of college. It was pharmaceutical sales jobs, which were fairly well compensated, in company car and all that stuff, and thought that was a good way to start. Eli Lilly was a fantastic company, tremendous training. Enjoyed it very much, but I was also, the entire time I was working at Lilly, trying to figure out how to get back into a more marketing and public relations related job. So I worked with Lilly for about a year, and I was playing in a golf tournament back here in Muncie with a couple of friends from Wabash. One of whom was Brad Benbow, the other King Lumpkin, and they had started a small communications and advertising firm called Rudder Communications. So played a golf tournament with them. The next few days, they were asking me about what I really wanted to do with my life, was being a pharmaceutical sales rep really all I wanted to do, and the answer was no. And so I left a Fortune 500 company to come to Muncie, Indiana, to work for a startup. In essence, I was the 5th employee for Rudder Communications, working in the basement of the old, Muncie Clinic building there on Washington and Liberty Street. So
it's quite a leap of faith.
It was, but I did it because I trusted, Brad. I trusted King, and it was what I wanted to do. Again, with the Hooks background and the Pan Am, internship, it was really a lot more what I wanted to do. So, and I was young and stupid, but I will never look back on that decision because it was fantastic. My time at Rudder Communications was the basis for everything that I do now. And, we had a chance to take that company from 5 employees and grow it to, about 150 employees over the next, 10 years or so. So it was great. I mean, loved it. While with Rudder, I started as an account executive, here. But in one of the meetings I had with Brad, I saw this map on the wall, right, that had all these pins in it of different markets that they wanted to start a new operation in. And one of the times I was with Brad, I'd mentioned to him, I'm like, hey, what are those pins in the map, And he's like, well, those are the new markets we want to open, by such and such time frame. I said, hey, I count me in. I'd love to help with that. Well, it's one of those be careful what you wish for moments, because about 3 weeks later, I had everything I owned packed in a Ryder truck headed to Huntington, West Virginia. So to launch my first market. So, and in that capacity, I was first guy in town from the company, did all the initial sales, all the initial marketing, all the initial hiring, all the initial training, all the initial operations stuff. Would live in that community for a period of months or sometimes even a year and get that market up and set up and then move on to the next one. So I did that in Huntington, West Virginia. I did it in Connecticut, California, and then Michigan, Illinois, Ohio before coming back to
Muncie. So all
Muncie.
over the country. What did you enjoy it at first, the adventure of traveling, living in all these new places and being young?
Yeah, young, was not married at the time. Lots of yes, it was an adventure. And it was a great way to see the country and get to know people in different communities. I've always enjoyed meeting new people. That part wasn't hard, but the challenge then of not only meeting new people, but leveraging those new friends into new clients and into a new operation in a community was so rewarding. You could see something going from nothing, to a small sales operation in each one of these communities that was doing some good work. We did local cable television advertising. But we did it really well and formed a great culture and a great company, and it extremely rewarding part of my career for sure.
How long would you live in each city?
Oh, just about between 6 months and a year. So a lot of it was figuring out what the market was like, who the business leaders were in that community, figuring out how we could help that community. We did a tremendous job of doing public service campaigns. And many of these communities were a lot like Muncie. They were the Muncie, Indianas of the world. They were not the big major metropolitan areas, but smaller communities between 50 and 100,000 people. Many of them did not have local television affiliates, so we became Hollywood to a lot of these communities, just doing these different local advertising campaigns. So it was a lot of fun. Again, great way to see the country, great way to kind of cut my teeth professionally, and a lot of these operations were, again, start from scratch. So it was a real, I think, kind of a on the street MBA, way to kind of learn about business and setting up new operations.
How'd you go from Rudder to Meridian?
A little bit of a gap in there, in that after Rudder, I've been with Rudder for several years. Several of us decided we wanted to do a little bit more and not just the cable television advertising side of things. We started a full-service advertising agency called Joseph David Advertising, and we did that for about 8 years. There were 4 or 5 partners that started it, and it was full-service advertising. So everything from strategic marketing campaigns to television to radio to outdoor to strategic plans. We really helped larger companies, more regional and even national companies, put together their advertising plans. So again, a great extension of what I had done. But during that process, Meridian actually became one of our clients. Actually, back in the day, it was Comprehensive Mental Health Services, and our agency was helpful in the name change that they made from Comprehensive Mental Health Services to Meridian Health. So helped with that name change, which included an event which helped announce the name to the community. And for that event, we had Brooke Shields come to town, which was cool. She was, somebody of my generation that was model actress, but was a tremendous advocate for mental health. And so we got her to come to town, had 1,000 people at this dinner, and made quite an impression with Meridian. And a couple years later, Meridian reached back out to me and asked if I would come help start their fund development department. So that's how I got to know Meridian, and then came to work for Meridian.
How long have you been there now?
It'll be 9 years this summer. So have participated and helped do all 10 Rialzos. We're coming up on Rialzo 10, April 27th, and was a consultant for the first one, helped them with getting some corporate partnerships to get it off the ground. But then, came on board with Meridian and then that summer. And, it'll be 9 years this summer.
Now, I've heard Rialzo, people talk about it. People hear about it, but what is it exactly?
Well, it's a black tie charity gala. Simple as that. The hospital had stopped doing their Festival of Trees charity gala several years before then, and our CEO just thought, gosh, we really should have a nice, black tie gala. And it was kind of our way of kind of fulfilling that niche, filling that void that was left by that hospital event. So we started in 2010 and with just the idea that we would work with the arts partners. So we realized that people really didn't know who Meridian was. We had largely been a social services organization, mental health and behavioral health, largely behind the scenes, not really doing any, direct-to-consumer marketing, whatsoever. But when I started, I realized that if I was going to raise money for Meridian, as Meridian is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, I realized that people needed to know who we were. Nobody's giving money to an organization they don't know who they are, and much less, what they do. So Rialzo helped put us on the map. So we worked with Muncie Civic Theater, Muncie Cornerstone Center for the Arts, and Muncie Symphony as kind of our arts partners or volunteers, and we put together an event that was going to be black tie, dinner dance kind of event. And the first year we got a group called the Fifth Dimension, which you'll probably have to go Google after this, but they had some great songs back in the 60s, Up and Away in My Beautiful Balloon, several other, Age of Aquarius, some other things, and we got them to play together with the Muncie Symphony. And it was a great musical event, and we had 350 people or so there at the event, and that was Rialzo 1, and the rest is history.
Where now you raise these funds through, plate cost and all that. Where do the funds go? Does it vary each year, or?
Yeah, it does. So we started initially, the event was largely to get raise awareness for the Meridian brand. We didn't even make an appeal at the first couple of Rialzos. I mean, it was more about introducing people to who we were and what we did. So, we really didn't start selecting specific programs for the money to go toward until Rialzo 4, I believe, was the first time we did that. And we raised money for our children's services program over at the Suzanne Gresham Center on White River Boulevard, the old Morrison Mock School. And we raised enough money that year to provide a beautiful new state-of-the-art playground. for Children's Services, which is over $100,000. So it was kind of cool. And since then, we've tried to select a different program every year because there are roughly 20 different programs under the Meridian umbrella, all of which doing kind of a niche-based services in the health spectrum. And in this last 3 years, we've done it and picked specifically the maternal treatment program, which focuses on drug-addicted mothers and their babies. So program didn't exist previously, but is a kind of response to the headlines that you see in the newspaper about the drug problem that we have, not just in this area, but all over Indiana, all over the Midwest, and really all over the country for that matter. So,
now, Meridian, how many different types of programs do they have like that?
Oh gosh, I think it's about 24 different individualized programs, ranging from primary health care. So we now have primary, health care under our umbrella. You can go see your primary care physician at Meridian. We call that Meridian MD. The pediatric services, the Primetime Pediatrics over there on Tillotson Avenue is also operated by Meridian Health. And, all the way down to programs like the maternal treatment program that I just mentioned that, serves drug-addicted mothers and referral basis from everything from Department of Child Services to the prosecutor's office that now has served 80 women and has had 21 babies born completely drug-free, in that process. So many different things under our umbrella, but we try to get the message out at each Rialzo about a different Meridian program.
What's the date for this year's?
April 27th, so it's coming up.
Soon.
Yes, end of the month, and we're getting close. But anytime you're talking about an event for 1,000 people, there are just a million little details to take care of. But we're very lucky because we've got corporate partners and the entire community that helps us.
And I saw you guys are completely sold out.
We are completely sold out. Now, Jake, if you wanted a ticket, I might be able to get you in.
I'll toss the live, see when we get a babysitter that night. Now, one person I always see helping you out was a former guest on the podcast, was Victoria Brewer.
Yes, Victoria's fantastic. Very lucky. It's funny. I was talking to my wife one night about how I needed somebody at the office to do these different things, and she said, "Well, why don't you talk to Victoria?" And I was a friend of my wife's, and of course, my wife is never wrong, and she couldn't have been more right with this one either. Victoria, I interviewed her, and she's been a tremendous partner in this process. She works in our development with our development team, and she does everything from keeping me in line, which is a full-time job plus, but also all the details involved with all the donors to Meridian and all the corporate partners that we have. So.
Yeah, I had her on. It's been a couple months ago for her Once Upon a Plate catering company, which is just blowing up.
It is. The fact that she does all of that in addition to what she does for me is mind-boggling.
Yeah, I asked her when she was on. I said, "How much sleep do you get at night?" She said, "Maybe 3-4 hours."
Yeah. It's amazing. She is phenomenal. Just a ton of energy, a ton of drive. And honestly, I'm lucky to have her work with our team because she's got two very successful businesses. And the chances of those things continuing to grow are very, very good. So her days at Meridian, may be numbered because of the pull of doing her own thing and being her own boss. But she certainly makes me better and makes our team better. So I hope she sticks around at Meridian for a while longer.
Definitely, and good luck with your year's event.
Thank you.
Like I said, already sold out. I'm sure it will go off with zero hitches.
Oh, let's hope so. That's always the plan and the dream, but there are always things that go wrong. But it's more how you react to those things, and take care of patients, take care of customers at the event. But yeah, I'm hopeful that it'll be the community celebration that it's become. It's not just a Meridian event anymore. It's a true community celebration.
Now, this past Christmas, my wife and I were looking for somewhere to take our son Blair to see Christmas lights. And Jill's searching. She goes, "Oh, look, here at Gresham, it's over on White River.
All right.
They got Christmas lights." I said, "Yeah, let's check it out." And there's a video. And I pulled up the video, and there's Scott Smalstig talking about the Christmas lights at Gresham. How did that come about?
It was an idea of our CEO's, actually. Again, we were in a place where we had moved all of our children's health services, behavioral health services, out of our main campus on Tillotson and into Morrison Mock School in I think it was around 2006. And there were still many people who did not know that we were there, what we were doing. Most of the work we provide is behind the scenes in the schools. But we do outpatient therapy there and a number of different things. So the idea was, again, we looked for a void in the community. For several years, there have been a few different light exhibits, even Mizzou.
The Mizzou, yeah. I went there as a kid, absolutely.
Back in the day, that was kind of the place to do a quick drive-through light exhibit, and that was no longer being done. And so we said, well, let's give it a shot. So we started buying lights and had, again, some great community partners who wanted to be a part of it. J. Crew Landscaping, who has just been a tremendous partner in helping us pull that off. And then now we've got well over 100,000 lights out there. We run it every weekend in December leading up to Christmas, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. And we average about 15,000 people a year going through to see those lights. And it's so cool as a volunteer out there to see kids' noses and faces pressed up against the windows as you drive through.
Yeah, it worked out for us because Blair, he would have been right around a year. Because it's in a controlled environment, we were able to get him out of his car seat so he could actually get up on mom's lap and see the lights. Like, he loved it. So it just fit for what we wanted, perfectly that night.
Oh, that's cool. It's a fun little thing. It's perfect to go do when you're maybe, after dinner or you've gone out to eat with the family or you're just wanting to drive around and get in the holiday spirit. And Fred Reese is another gentleman at NB Designs who has helped us tremendously with the design of that exhibit. And we add things to it every year, so we try to keep it fresh, try to add new things. And it'll continue to be one of those things that helps elevate our brand and helps put Meridian on the map.
Yeah, it seems like you just have a knack to get funds developed through all your different events that you seem to touch have a success of bringing in funds.
Well, I mean, again, we're lucky we've got great community partners. I mean, the idea is to create what I refer to as a kind of a cause marketing platform. So it's not just a donation from a company, but a company gets to join us in the marketing of Rialzo or the marketing of the holidays at Gresham, or we do another event called Fam Fest. And it helps businesses tie to a cause that's meaningful, hence the term cause marketing. So, it might, help somebody get their message out in a non-traditional way. It's not buying radio advertising or television advertising, but it's creating a cause marketing platform that people can get their message out or have their brand associated with our brand, which helps us, raise more awareness for the event. So
on top of all this work and fundraising and events, you're married with 3 kids.
Yes, and that it keeps it all fun. I've got a great wife. She's phenomenal. She's an attorney here in town at Dennis Winger in April, and actually met her at a black tie function here in Muncie. It was at the old charity ball is where we actually met. And yes, have 3 kids. My daughter Madison is a freshman at IU and enjoying life down there this year, and really enjoying being a college student. And then I have a son, Garrig, who's a junior at Yorktown and super involved in school and sports there. And then have a 7-year-old daughter, Athena, who keeps us all hopping for sure.
Now, Athena was adopted, correct?
Yes.
How did that come about?
Actually, it all comes back to baseball, Jake. So, meeting you and then even our adoption has to do with baseball. So I was coaching a travel team, my sons, with a couple other guys, one of whom worked at the hospital. The other worked in Department of Child Services. And his family had fostered a couple kids. And during one of the summers we were coaching together, had fostered an infant, and so the moms took turns holding this baby all summer long, and we kind of got bitten by the the bug. And Tara came to me and said, I really think we're supposed to do something. And so we went through the foster parent training program through Department of Child Services. And the day we finished with our training, our phone rang, and there was a placement available for us. And it was a 2-year-old little redhead girl who had some challenging circumstances. Had been taken from her birth parents when she was 8 months old. Lived with a foster family, but the foster family had just adopted another child and had 5 kids, and so it probably wasn't going to be room for Athena in that environment. And so we became the next option and started that process of fostering, and fostered her for a year, and then got a chance to adopt her on her 3rd birthday. So.
Yeah, you posted some pictures celebrating 5 years, right?
Right.
And that little girl has the biggest smile, glowing smile in those pictures when the adoption happened. It's really neat.
It was cool. We're very blessed. She's made us better parents. It's been challenging for sure, but she's made us better parents. I mean, she's, she deserved better than the environment that she had, and we're hoping that we're providing that. We're not perfect either by any stretch of the imagination, but we're doing our best to provide a loving environment, with her, and she's made our family better.
I know she's very involved with the Muncie Civic Theater.
It's one of the things she loves. Yeah,
so involved that you got on stage.
I'd never done all the things that I, have done before with student government and journalism and sports and all those things. I had never been on stage in a production like that. And so she's been in 5 or 6 productions now, and including Annie, which was kind of, one of the ones that she really wanted to do. And then after that, she asked me to take her to auditions for It's a Wonderful Life. So I gathered up my stuff one Saturday morning and took her to Muncie Civic and spread out my work, as she was going to, be there doing her auditions. It was going to take several hours. And so as I'm sitting there, somebody from Civic came over and said, "So are you here to audition?" And Athena at that point in time was sitting right next to me. And I said, no, I'm not. And just getting some work done here for Athena. And Athena turns and looks at me and says, "Dad, we could do this together." And I was toast.
You can't turn that down.
You can't turn that down. So, somehow I fell into a couple small parts in It's a Wonderful Life, and we had a great time together. It was cool.
Yeah, it has to be really a great memory for her to be on stage with Dad.
It was cool. And I found out how hard that stuff is. Oh, my gosh. I thought, all the public speaking I'd done and different things, it'd be a piece of cake. It was not. It was challenging. But and Athena was the one that was checking on me all the time, making sure I was doing okay.
One thing I admire about you, Scott, is every time I'm around you, you're positive, upbeat. You always seem, glass half full guy. And you're always on an adventure somewhere. I always see you're in Arizona, you're here. One thing that caught my eye was a Route 66 road trip.
Yes.
And you guys were in this 1984 Bonneville. How does this idea come about?
I've got crazy friends, that are adventurous too. So my 2 best friends from high school, we try to get together every 2 or 3 years, and usually it's surrounding a sporting event. We go to a couple baseball games in a city, or we went to the U.S. Tennis Open a couple years ago in New York and had a great time. But we were looking for something different, and my buddy found this thing called the Lemons Rally, and it's a rally, kind of a road rally of cars that are lemons, cars that are worth $500 or less. So at least initially.
So it's like an offshoot of the Gumball Rally.
It is similar, yes,
with lemons.
With lemons. And so my buddy also happened to have a car that had been gifted to him by his great aunt. It was a 1984 Bonneville Brougham that you mentioned, which just happened to be the year that we graduated from high school. But it had been in his barn for 15 years, untouched, not started, not even dusted off. So his idea was to participate in this Lemons Rally which was this Route 66 trip going from Chicago to Santa Monica, California, and we'd pull this car out of the barn and dust it off and get it fixed up and take this trip. So that's what we did. We pulled the car out during the summer, washed it off, realized, none of us have a mechanical bone in our body, and so we took it to a mechanic. He changed the belts and hoses, and then we just did a lot of praying and said, please, hope this car gets us from Chicago to California. So we weren't even sure this car was going to make it from Indy to Chicago, much less from Chicago to California. But yeah, and then the rally's incredibly well organized. It's they come up with all these stops along the way, and you've got to take photos with some of the funky things that you see, like the world's largest ball of twine and all that kind of stuff along the way. And so we made 130 stops along the way, from Apache Indian caves to 80-foot deep watering holes, and just crazy stuff. But did that all in 1 week's time frame, driving from Chicago to California.
How'd the Bonnie do?
The Bonnie did fantastic. We made it. It only broke down once. It overheated an hour outside of Santa Monica, in the mountains just outside of Santa Monica. It finally overheated, but I think it was only because we had kind of gotten off the beaten path, and we had shaken some rust loose in the radiator, I think, and it started overheating. But once we let it overheat, we filled it with some more antifreeze, and we were back off and made it just in time.
I feel like some people could buy a brand new car and couldn't get outside Chicago, and you guys pull one out of a barn and cross country it.
Oh, it was fantastic. Oh, it was a trip of a lifetime for sure. Just doing Route 66 was cool enough. We managed to see some friends along the way, and just happened to be in Las Vegas on Halloween as a part of that trip too, which was a trip in and of itself. But just a great time, and memories that I'll never forget. And we took the opportunity. The other part of it that I forgot to mention. So our 35th high school reunion is coming up next year. Later this year, and we needed to raise some money. So it all comes back to fund development, right? So we had raised some money for a venue and maybe some food and some other things. So we decided to, along this trip, allow people to sponsor different segments of this Route 66 trip, and we ended up raising like $4,000. Just calling buddies and asking them if they'd sponsor different portions of the trip along the way. So not only did we have an awesome time, but we managed to raise a little bit of money too.
That's excellent. Any big adventures this year after the Route 66 trip later this year?
We're still recovering. So I'm not sure. Usually I try to figure out a couple things to do with my brother as well. He's an adventurous guy. We've done some hiking adventures the last few years. We did rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, where we start on the south rim, basically ran across to the north rim, and then ran back the next day. So 52 miles in 2 days in the Grand Canyon, which was awesome. And then last year we did Mount Whitney, which is the tallest peak in the lower 48 United States. Most people think it's Mount Rainier or some of these other places, but it's Mount Whitney in the mountains in Sierra Nevadas in California, and we did a hike there. So we're looking at maybe going to Zion, and doing that in Utah, and doing a little hiking and camping there. So,
you ever heard of Jesse Itzler?
I have. Oh, in fact, so are you talking about the Everesting thing? He does a thing called 29029. Mm-hmm. Yes,
that's what made me think of that. I actually just on one of my podcasts, I was going to read a book. I actually read the book Living with a Seal.
Oh my gosh!
And he talks about training the seal.
Right.
But yeah, he's done the 100-mile runs.
Right.
He does the 29 whatever it is. All kinds of adventurous stuff like that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because my brother wants to do that, the 29029, which is basically, there are two different ways you can do it. One's in Vermont, one's in Utah, I believe, and you climb the equivalent of Mount Everest. So 29029 is the number of feet that Mount Everest is. And so, in Utah, you're climbing this with the same mountain like 17 times, right? Which would be the equivalent. And you do that over a 36-hour period of time, which would be the equivalent of Mount Everest. So it's on our list. I don't think we're going to get it done this year just because I'm dealing with a heel injury. But it's on our list. So yes, Itzler's the man.
I actually just started his other book, Living with the Monks, where he goes to a monastery in upstate New York. I just started it because he said, I've done the challenging physical side. Now I want to work on my mental side. So for 15 days, he went out and lived with the monks.
He is a fascinating follow. I mean, he's just a guy that pushes the envelope, adventurous, wants to get the most out of life. So
yeah, he's very inspirational. And any podcast he's on, definitely listen. Books, definitely read. It's very inspirational. Like I said, you got talking about that. Reminded me of Itzler.
Yeah.
The way we met was through baseball. Little League, Rorton, Rudder Reds, back in the day.
The Rudder Reds.
Where'd your love of baseball come from?
Great question. Mostly from my dad. My dad grew up in Pittsburgh. He was a big Pittsburgh Pirates fan, Roberto Clemente and the whole crew. And so I kind of got it from him. And it was the sport that I was always best at. I loved football and basketball as well. Played all three growing up, but the one I was best at was baseball. And and baseball was a way to connect with my family. I loved listening to my dad's stories about the Pirates of the, of the 60s and 70s. And then my mom grew up on Long Island, and so she was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. So she tells me stories about paying a nickel, to go sit in the bleachers at Ebbets Field. So just some really cool stuff. And so it was a way to connect, with my family. So baseball was always that kind of common thread. And because I enjoyed playing and was pretty good, it became kind of the center of a lot of family activities, for a while. And I still love it. I mean, it's, I've loved coaching my kids. I've loved, coaching out at Royerton, even when I didn't have kids. I just, really enjoyed it. I think I still have old video cassettes of, I think I found one of Joey Lynch the other day. I was videotaping your guys' swings, 30 years ago, just to try to help you all become better players.
Yeah, it's funny because that group, it would have been my sophomore year. We went to the Final Four, and it was you start building those teams through Little League.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, any great baseball program in high school, you can trace it to the roots at that level. And if you have folks that know what they're doing at that level coaching, I mean, you can name all those guys, all those players that did so well. There were so many good players back in that Royerton Little League back in the day, and some that played collegiate and then even professional baseball.
And I know Garrick. I see his name in the paper. He puts up numbers. He's on his way to college ball.
Well, he thinks he wants to. He's played well over a lot of years. He works hard at it. So I'm hopeful. But as you know, you can talk as well as anybody about the grind that college baseball is.
It's daily.
It's daily, and you got to really want it. It's a fun game, but it can become a job, too. So.
And that freshman year is very humbling. You sit down. I remember we sit down, all as freshmen, and ate dinner together one night, and we got talking, and everyone was all stayed. Everyone was all, everyone's as good as you. Yeah. And they want it just as bad. And also, when you get to campus, I was tall on skinny. I was 6'3", 170 when I get there. And you're playing ball with 22-year-old men. Yes. These guys have been in the weight room for 4 years. They're big men. So it was intimidating, but you just dive into the weight room.
Well, I remember that even all the way back to when you started playing with the Rudder Reds. You were probably one of the smaller guys, but from a technique, point of view and a passion point of view, you had it on all those kids, So I remember. Brad and I were so serious about picking the right kids in the draft. We're like, we got to get this Jacob Sewell kid.
That's awesome. Those are good days. I miss the game. I do. But to go have a chance to go play college, it's something I'm glad I didn't take advantage of it or say I don't really want to play because I have no regrets.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, there's so few people that get that opportunity. I mean, there are, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of kids that play Little League, but only, a few chosen ones that get to play at the college level.
Yeah, and I ended up blowing my shoulder out. I had surgery, all that, but I have no regrets because I tried it.
Yeah.
I knew I was at least good enough to go do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that freshman year, I hope Gary gets to experience it, go somewhere and play. But it's humbling.
Oh yeah, and baseball is a tremendous teacher of life lessons. I mean, what you experienced your freshman year with baseball is exactly your first year in the job market, right?
Everything I've experienced in the professional world is work, I guess you would say. I've took lessons from sports to help me get through it.
Absolutely.
It's such a great teacher, but not just baseball, but any sport, organized sport.
Absolutely. Yeah, the business world is so much like sports. I mean, you're trying to set goals. You're trying to pursue those goals. Everybody's got to play a different role. You got to work at it. You got to do your job every day and understand, what you're trying to get accomplished. And so that's what I mean. Gehrig is not going to be a professional baseball player. I'm under no delusions that's going to happen. But the lessons he can learn, in that environment are going to serve him well.
And those are going to be your friends. I still stay in touch with my old teammates. So we've been in each other's weddings. We try to get together once a year and hang out or have cookout.
Nice.
Yeah, that not playing pro hit me. I think it was my sophomore and junior year. Adam Lind.
Yes,
Anderson
absolutely.
Highland, daily player in the bigs, a millionaire. Made millions. We were hitting the cage over in Anderson at Mike Shirley's place.
Yes, where Gehrig, he goes for lessons he has since he was 10.
Mike's the best. And hitting with wood in the winter. And I swear, when I hit the ball with wood bat, it sounded like newspaper. And then he gets in, and it sounds like a telephone pole. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, there's no way.
Yeah. Some people, just have some different physical gifts, certainly. But ones that hone it well and learn, how to just make that ball pop. It is a different sound off some of those people's bats, and you know it.
Yeah, Lance Lynn was another one.
Yeah,
I got a chance to catch him in a high school all-star thing, and he walked in. That was a man at 18.
Yeah, he was huge, right? He was probably 230, 240, right?
Yeah, he was a big guy, and I got to catch him. I'm like, I don't know how I'd hit him.
Yeah,
I could catch him, but I don't think I hit him. And he's signed a big contract with the Yankees, I think, last year.
Yeah, the Cardinals for several years, and did well for them, obviously. And I think he was on that Brownsburg Little League team that went to the Little League World Series.
Which also won state in high school.
Right. Drew Storen was on that team, Lance Lynn, and it starts early.
It does.
It starts early.
One great example of that's Tim Cleland, Delta Tennis.
Right.
He starts those kids at 8 years old, and they've won how many regionals? 20-some years in a row.
And just this morning, my 7-year-old was at a volleyball clinic that's largely put on by Munciana folks. And is there anything magic in the water here in Muncie that makes some of the country's best volleyball players? No, it's the
Shondells started it.
It's the Shondells and the culture they created. The teaching of technique and how they go about it, and they produce.
And now you see their players coaching.
Oh, yeah, the coaching tree. And the legacy that they've left, just had so many girls, especially that have been able to get their college educations paid for through volleyball is phenomenal.
Scott, I really appreciate your time.
Oh, you bet.
Hanging out talking. It's always good to talk the glory days of Delta Little League. How can people either follow you or Meridian so they can keep up on your events and anything they want to do to help out?
Sure. I'm probably most active social media-wise on Facebook, so find me there. I'm on Instagram, as well. The Meridian stuff you can find, at meridianhs.org. That's meridianhs.org. And right now, you hit that page, and we got a splash page up with all the Rialzo stuff. So this year's theme is the places you'll go, which is a big travel theme. And we've got 23 different trips, I think, that we're selling. Everything from Hawaii to Mykonos, Greece, to a cooking class that you can take in New Orleans. So all kinds of great stuff, including a trip to the ESPYs, Jacob. So that might be something cool.
All right, Scott. Once again, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it. As always, you can contact me on email at thejakeswellpodcast@gmail.com. and on Instagram at the Jake Sewell Podcast. Thanks.
Thank you.